Hello, how's it going? So today, I'm going to give an update. I haven't made a video in a month and a half about, and so I figure it's about time uh, to do that. Perhaps I'll be making more of these videos, um, and the reason why will become more apparent. So I suppose I should start with the last since I last made a video. So I'd been in the job I had down in Delaware for about 3 weeks. And the job itself was very stressful. Um, there was a lot of work. It wasn't very clear of what to do. The people were very nice, but the work itself was just ridiculous. No direction, whatever. If I asked for help, people just didn't have time for me. And it was just it was very frustrating. It paid pretty well, but at some point it was just I didn't feel comfortable working there. Mostly because I was left high and dry by everyone. And uh, anyway, so it became very, very, very stressful. And at some point, I started feeling pains in my chest. Uh, it was it was just a new feeling to me. And the reason why I panicked a little bit was because my dad has had a couple heart attacks. So, you know, from, I think the first one was about 20 years ago. So, and my mom, who died a couple months ago, uh, she died of a heart attack. Apparently, she had some heart issues that most of us didn't know about. So when your mom and your dad have heart issues, that means, and you feel something in your chest that causes you to s- sit up and take notice. So I called my wife. It was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I said, "Look, I do not feel well." And she was about to go. I think she had finished for the day or something like that. So anyway, I ended up asking her to come and pick me up. I texted my boss, who was working from home, and I just said, "Look, I don't feel well. I need the. I'm gonna ask my wife to take me to the hospital." So went to the hospital, uh, and the ER waiting room. Well, basically, they did an EKG on me. They did a bunch of vitals on me, and then they made me sit in a waiting room from about 5 o'clock till I don't know, about 2 in the morning, somewhere around there. I think all in all, I was there for about 8 hours. 7 hour waiting time is ridiculous. I know that they do triage, so if I had actually had a proper heart problem, I wouldn't have been sitting there for 7 hours. But I kept feeling it. I felt like for for the longest time, and it was one of the more harrowing experiences. It was one of the first times I was actually worried about my health. And so I sat there in the waiting room and nobody was really talking to him. There was probably about 20 people at any given time. A lot of people actually just got up and left because they were frustrated with the waiting time. But since I had had so many, like I had had that fear of like this might be a serious problem in the future, I'm just going to deal with it here and now. So I ended up seeing the doctor at the wee hours in the morning, and she told me, I think that you've had an anxiety attack. And so there are very similar, uh, very similar symptoms. So, it's, well, you didn't have a heart attack, you had an anxiety attack, and you should probably be seeing about that in your regular GP. And the thing is, my wife and I, we've been a little bit lazy about our medical stuff, and we didn't actually have a GP at the moment. We have insurance, but we haven't set up a GP. So I went home, Didn't end up working the next day. I tried to set up a GP, which I could only do the next day. So that I think that was a Friday, and I went up to actually up to Temple where I went to went for undergrad and for graduate school. But it was actually right around the corner from where I used to live, um, up at the hospital, and it was amazing to see how attentive the doctor was. He was a resident, so I think that means that they've graduated from medical school and they have to sort of be mentored by a sort of supervisor. I don't know how that works, but essentially, they're learning how to they've learned all the medical stuff, but there's a lot more to it than just what you learn in med school. So you have to go through another 3 years, 2 or 3 years of that. Sounds horrific. Um, so anyway, uh, and I just repeated the same story over and over again if anybody would listen. And so anyway, they put me back on the medicine that I was taking in England, which is good. Um, and I and they said, well, your heart's fine. I guess it is the stress. And so I was basically sort of forced to think about my employment, whether or not I would continue to work because I don't really want to die of a heart attack. So, this company their stock will go up, a quarter of a point if I do a little bit better of a job and deal with all the stress. So they put me on medication. I go home. The next day, no, that day, my wife goes up to Boston as she had planned to do to see a friend. They went to a concert. She came back and brought coronavirus back with me. So, so she was laid out on the couch the whole week, and I was working from home, um, just as a it was something that is part of the job is that you can work from home a couple of weeks during the summer. So I just decided to do that. Um, and anyway, she was laid out, and then eventually I got it. Oh, and it was pretty bad. The sore throat was the worst part of it. I didn't mind feeling like crap. It's the not being able to swallow and not being able to speak and just feeling like you had broken glass. And I was just afraid that, that my throat would maybe get, if you cough too much, you swallow too much, afraid it would get ripped and then we get all bloody and get sort of that would be a big mess. So anyway, yeah, I was laid out for a little bit, probably about 5 days, and then I started working on that Thursday, the next Thursday after my little ER visit. So I worked a day, I worked another day, and started feeling better. So my wife and I just we went out on Sunday, um, and Uh, actually, I might have the timeline a little confused, but so I worked another week, and then essentially I go into work. Oh, this was the August the 1st, so last week, and I find out that I'd been had my contract terminated. They basically they no my boss. I apparently I wasn't supposed to show up to work. There's somebody was supposed to call me and tell me this. No one ever did. This company that I was working for on behalf of, basically an agency, told me that didn't tell me not to go into work. They did that maybe an hour and a half after I left that morning. So technically I didn't get fired, but I got fired. Um, so it was very frustrating because while I know that I wasn't a very good fit, um, and I hated the work. That was probably the worst job I've ever had. The pay was pretty good, but I hated every second of the work that I did, and I don't miss it at all. I do miss having a paycheck though. So you got to take the good with the bad and the rough with the smooth. But so I got laid off, um, and I'm back on the job search again. So I'm not. I was never really given a reason why. Um, I show up and my boss is shocked to see me there, and he brings me in a room and says, "Sorry, we've had to end the contract." I said, "Any particular reason why?" And he said, "Oh, budget things." I think he was being a little bit cowardly and saying, "Look, you're not good enough," or maybe there was a budget thing. The thing is that I was earning a decent amount of money, and so if you work through an agency, that amount of money is essentially they pay double. You take half of it, the agency takes the other half. So they might have been paying way too much money for somebody they didn't like, and didn't want long term. So it's easier just to cut ties and deal with it, deal with the extra work for everybody. Maybe they found out since I'd been out of like I didn't work for about like there was 3 days of that day when I went to the it was 2 days when I went to the hospital. I didn't work the next day and that Friday either. And then I was out for about 3 days for coronavirus. Maybe they figured that um, they didn't need me. Maybe there was a budget thing. I don't know. All I know is I got a song and a dance, and I was a little upset. Not just because I was let go and nobody really wants to be let go, but I was more upset that I was sort of. Uh, it seems like corporations and the people who work for them tend to be a bit cowardly in their dealings with other people. They want somebody to do the dirty work for them, which I can understand in the sense like co- corporations tend to be cowardly because they don't want to get sued, and you never know who's going to sue you. Or I've heard of people going mental and throwing shit around, and obviously I'm not that kind of person, but you never know who you're dealing with, and people don't even know themselves if they're that kind of person until it happens. Anyway, that didn't happen. The thing that really pissed me off about it was the fact that so this is in Wilmington, and this is not like any very um, urban part of Wilmington, Delaware. If you've ever been to Delaware, you probably haven't seen very much of it. I don't know very much about the place at all. I've only ever really driven through it. Maybe stopped to take a piss at a rest stop. But uh, I didn't know what to do. I was out in this middle the place where the company where I was working, where their building was like smack dab in the middle of a state park. So there wasn't really much going on around there. Um, and I wasn't really thinking clearly, obviously, when you're let go. So it was about 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm out there, I'm looking for a way to get home in South Philadelphia. And I'm fuming, and mostly because I have to deal. Here's a not only do you not have a job, but here's a new problem you have to deal with. Find a way to get home. You're out in the middle of a state park. Your wife's not able to come and get you. So I ended up walking down the road there. I stopped at a McDonald's just to have a strawberry milkshake, which they didn't have, and so I had to get a vanilla milkshake, which was okay. I could have used a strawberry milkshake to be honest with you. So anyway, I kind of gathered my thoughts. I was like, okay, I can take the this bus that goes down this road to Wilmington, like the main part of the city, and then take a SEPTA train, which SEPTA is sort of the regional uh, transportation system here in Philadelphia. And so I went down, so I took the bus all the way down to SEPTA to the train station in Wilmington. And I basically I talked to the ticket guy. He says, "Okay, you got your ticket, but the train's not going to come until about quarter after 12." And it was like 10 o'clock. So I sat in the train station for 2 hours about to get on a SEPTA train, which took about another hour to get into the center city, Philadelphia, and about another half an hour to get home. So by the end of it, I wasn't home until about 2 o'clock. So it took me about 5 hours to get home from there. Uh, and that was what I was really upset about. I haven't really been thinking about this very much until just this moment, and that really pisses me off. That that these people just didn't tell me not to come into work. I can deal with, believe me, I've dealt with a lot of rejection in my life, and it gets a little easier as you get older because you think, well, I have survived something like this. Uh, um, it's not fun to get fired. I've only ever got fired once before. I guess technically I didn't get fired, but um, I kind of feel this way. Um, and it's not a fun feeling, like because you feel like you're not a quality person because they don't think you're doing quality work. So you start to kind of internalize this rejection as an overall um, summary of who you are, and it's not fun because you're already under the stress and the strain of, well, there goes my income. Then you have to deal with like the psychological effect of not just not having that income, but also of just not being wanted, um, um, which is not very fun. But um, you have to find a way to bounce back. And so I think one of the things that I've been able to do is, it's funny because that was on August 1st. So today is August 9th. And so it's been a little bit over a week, and I've sort of had time to process of what I need to do and sort of get into a new routine of job search and just kind of hanging out, taking it easy, but still doing what I need to do to find a new job. So I've been running every day. I've been doing a lot of reading. I did everything. I'm basically redoing everything I did before this, except for I don't have to worry about going to visit my mother anymore because she died. Um, and so a lot of this time I've just been able to read books. I've been working on my blog a little bit. I've been hanging out. Um, Obviously, like because I don't have that income, I can't really spend very much money. So, and the thing is, I've never really got used to having that money, so it just sort of piled up a little bit, and which is nice because now I need that money to pay bills and contribute to the household. However, I think it's just weird to be back in the situation. And one other frustrating bit about this is that the one person I think who could sort of talk sense to me, or to who could have reassured me, or you know kind of get me on the right path would have been my mother. Um, and I don't have that anymore, so it's a bit sad. Not only that you don't have your mother around in there, but you don't have that shoulder to lean on. And not that my wife has been bad. It's just that my mom was particularly good at talking people through rough times, like through her friends, to her family members, to her colleagues at work. She was a good person to keep you sane, although she drove you crazy all the other times. But if you really needed her to kind of talk you off the ledge, she was there for you. So I don't have that anymore. My dad's, I won't say he's useless in this, but he's just not that good at this. So I'm sort of relying on my wife to kind of get me through this, and she's got her own problems. But so what I've been able to do is, incidentally, on the day that this did happen, I was about to say this on August 1st. I kind of decided that, look, I'm not going to be paying attention to news anymore because I find that since I've been on this medication, so it's been about 3 or 4 weeks, I find that my mood swings are kind of tempered, like, you're bounded. So rather than this sort of wild mood swings, you're sort of, oh, okay, um, which is nice. You don't feel like crap every once in a while and at random times, or little things can set you off. So I feel a little bit more bounded in that sense. But excuse me, I do feel that I'm in a very tenuous uh, grasp on reality or sanity here, and so I have to uh, kind of do myself a favor and not find any way to get upset about stuff. So I decided that morning, actually, before I ended up showing up to work only to be told to go away, that I was not going to read any news. Now, I can't avoid the internet being on uh, job sites, and uh, I use the internet to listen to a lot of music, and music is it has always been a boon to me, something that I can rely on to make me happy or kind of help me pass through difficult times. Uh, so I needed that, mostly because I don't have a player here. I have some music in boxes downstairs, but I don't have a player. I don't know whatever happened to my player. So anyway, I uh, I decided that, okay, apart uh, from music and doing job stuff, I'm not going to look at the internet. Like, I'm not going to look at news. I'm not going to look at politics or even sort of social media or any kind of cultural things on the internet. So I have actually looked at a little bit of sport news. So I've been following the Phillies, but uh, really that's it. Um, and they don't really talk about news other than what's going on in baseball, which is fine. And so I've been trying to find a way to feel better about myself. Um, and that means not exposing myself to any crappy news, crappy feelings, which means I kind of have to be careful of what I watch on TV. So I don't really want to watch depressing films. I don't want to read depressing books. Unfortunately, for the blog thing that I've been doing, I had to read a tragedy by Euripides called Trojan Women, which is basically the sort of tail end of the Trojan War, where people are killed or they're sent away as slaves to live in Greece, and it's depressing. But I just got through that and went and got on to the next thing. Next thing I'm doing is Plato, and this is a little bit more sort of abstract, and there's less depression in this than in a story about the Trojan War. But I feel a little bit better now that I'm not looking at news, because news basically, these news sites and news things on the internet, a lot of it, um, they make a lot of their money trying to piss you off, um, by showing you how terrible the world is, or how evil some people, even not only abroad but in your own country, can be. And most of it's nonsense. It's bullshit. This stuff is not true. It's half truths. It can be just out and out lies. And I find that, so it's only been about what, 8, 9 days since I don't know what's going on in the world other than in the baseball world. And I went to a concert. I went to a Roger Waters concert, which was a little depressing. So Roger Waters is the was the singer and songwriter from Pink Floyd. Now, he did most of the songwriting, and about half of the singing. Uh, he's an amazing songwriter, amazing musician, but he's very political. And the thing is that uh, I just find it when singers and musicians and uh, anybody famous starts talking about politics, it's very off-putting. And some of the times he was very heavy-handed. And it's interesting at the very beginning of the concert, he had some kind of, it was a very strange setup. I've never seen anything like it. Because it was at Wells Fargo Center where the Flyers and the Sixers play. And so you imagine like a hockey rink with a stage in the middle, and there's like this sort of cross screens where like they would show what the band are doing because they're like this, and so it shows you bigger, and it was pretty, like in basic at the beginning he says, "Oh, the show's about to begin, and if you're worried about Roger's political opinions, fuck off," and I was like, okay, I know that this is going to be a little bit heavy-handed. Wasn't as bad as I was expecting, but there were, I mean, he's just really heavy-handed with and this is because maybe he's an artist and therefore he's trying to make you feel things and he's very good at it. And but on the other hand, like I just didn't need it, and you could tell the it really a lot of the crowd was turned off by it. So um, yeah, I just I do my best to avoid politics. I do my best to avoid news. I don't really need to know this. I mean, I suppose that I should do a little bit of news digging come election time. That's not until November, and that's about 3 months away. So I don't need to read the news. I don't need to read the uh, all the terrible things and what people think about each other and what they think about me. And I don't, nobody really knows that I exist, but somehow people want to have opinions about your existence because you tick certain boxes that they don't like, which is a shame, but they're free to be an asshole, just as I am free to be an asshole or a nice person. You're free to do that. So anyway, I've rambled on long enough. So I'm just gonna cut it off there. It was fun to get this out. It's almost like I'm just sort of just purging all these bad feelings from me, and purging them onto you. So maybe next time if you end up watching another one of these videos, bring a smock. See you soon. Bye.